How you doing, seniors? I hope you're doing well. As you noticed, our modules look a little bit different this week. This is the new way we're going to be doing our modules. I believe it's going to be more beneficial and help you with doing your assignments. So, first things first, you're going to notice that under Bell Ringer, I have the class code. That's going to be different than the class code you had last week. That class code is null and void. It no longer exists. It is gone. Okay? So, go into ReadWorks, put in this new class code. Remember, you have to do ReadWorks every single day. It's your bell ringer every single day. Now, outside of that, you have 2 assignments to do today. So activity 1 is called Educated, Prologue and Epigraph Questions. And activity 2 is What is Education? So activity 1 is always going to be your daily in-class assignment. Think of it like what we would do in class normally if you were, in this room working and we were reading something and I was like, oh, cool, we're going to do some response questions to the reading. That's activity 1. So those are going to be tied to these prologue and epigraph questions. So let's look at those real quick. So react to the epigraph and prologue from Educated by developing your response to the questions. Paraphrase the 2 quotations. Describe Tara's family and describe Tara, the narrator. So when we look at the epigraph first, you're going to see 2 small quotes. So to understand what these quotes mean, we have to understand first what an epigraph is. An epigraph is what the author uses to sort of describe what the book or work, whatever they're writing about, is going to be about. And it's usually quotes from other authors or writers or anyone, philosophers, anything like that. So in particular with these 2, John Dewey is a philosopher and Virginia Woolf is a former author. She wrote in the 1800s. So when we look at these 2 quotes, we should see them as sort of like a guide to what our book is going to be about. So if you haven't learned yet, we're reading Educated by Tara Westover. I actually have the book cover right here. See it? Called Educated by Tara Westover. Now, this book is about a woman who grew up uneducated, and her lifestyle was very different than our lifestyles. She grew up in a very, very interesting lifestyle. I don't want to give too much away. I want you to read it. And the book we're reading is a memoir. Now, memoirs are like autobiographies. It is a person telling their own life, like an autobiography. However, the difference between a memoir and an autobiography is a autobiography kind of follows a set pattern. It's more about logics, facts, statistics, everything that occurred within their life. A memoir is more like a collection of short stories found within their own life. So in chapter 1, Tara could be writing about when she's 9 years old. In chapter 2, she can be writing about when she was 20 years old. Each chapter is like its own short story with its own experience. So with that in mind, let's look at this epigraph again. The past is beautiful because one never realizes an emotion at the time. It expands later, and thus we don't have complete emotions about the present, only about the past. So what does this quote mean? Well, when I look at it, the first thing that comes to mind is clearly the words past. We look at the word past and we see that it's there. We know that whatever this is, past is mentioned several times. So we know that this quote is about the past. So the past is beautiful because one never realizes an emotion at the time. So I think what Virginia Woolf is saying here is that when you feel something in the past, it feels one way. But when you keep looking back on it, it changes. It expands later, and thus we don't have complete emotions about the present, only about the past. So the example I used with the students in class today, if you were here, was when I was 19, I had a girlfriend who I dated for a few years. She passed away and died. The emotions I felt during the present, which is now the past. So at that present time, the emotions I felt were one way. But as I look back, at those 7 years ago when that happened, the emotions I feel today are different. It's totally different. I feel peace. I feel comfort. I don't feel the overwhelming sadness that I felt at that time. Your emotions expand, they change. So how we view the past is different depending on what we grow and develop into in the current time. So what she's saying is you can't truly see what is going on within your own life until you're able to look back on it. So remember, I said that Tara Westover's book, Educated, is about her experiences growing up and how she was uneducated. When she looks back on that, her experiences are different now. She can see them from a new way, a different perspective. Let's look at John Dewey's quote. I believe, finally, that education must be conceived as a continuing reconstruction of experience, that the process and the goal of education are one and the same thing. So when we look at this quote, what do we think this means? So we know that education is a primary word that we see throughout this quote. And he's saying that he believes education must be conceived as a reconstruction of experience. So let's tie our words together. Education, experience. That the process and the goal of education are the one and the same thing. So I'm not going to tell you what I think about this one. What I would rather hear is what you think about this quote. Again, I'm going to give you some clues here. Education is primarily what the quote is about. And he's saying it must be conceived as a continuing reconstruction of experience. So education and experience. And then this independent clause after the semicolon here that starts with that, I think it's the ringer into what the quote is about. The process and the goal of education. Sorry about that. There was an announcement and I didn't want you guys to hear it because it's super annoying. Anyways, the process and the goal of education are one and the same thing. Think about that when you're writing your answer, that the process and the goal of education are one and the same thing, okay? Okay, let's look at our next assignment. So let's minimize this. So once you complete that, you're going to read the prologue. Now, the prologue is only 3 pages, okay? And a prologue is sort of an introduction to a book. Think of it like pre-chapter 1. It's almost like chapter 0. So you're going to read the prologue, which is very short, and you're going to answer questions about Tara and what her family is like. So consider everything I've told you about Tara and her family, and I want you to look at some of those things. So then when you complete activity 1, you're going to answer these questions. Let's look at these questions again. Paraphrase the 2 quotations, which we looked at in the epigraph. Describe Tara's family and describe Tara, the narrator. Okay. And then you're going to do what is education? This is a discussion board topic. So when I open this up, what is an education? Lists the different factors that contribute to a person's education. Be sure to check the rubric to ensure you are meeting the requirements to get full points. So if you go over here, and in fact, you know what? I'm going to show you this in student view so you can see exactly what your screen will look like, okay? Student view. Let's go to modules like we do every day. And we're working out of Monday's module. And I'm going to come over here to activity 2, our discussion board. First, you're going to see replies are only visible to those who have posted at least 1 reply. So you can't see what your your fellow classmates have replied with until you post a reply yourself. This is so far shown to be very interesting because you guys tend to pull from the same websites. So stop doing that. Let's look at the rubric. So when we look at the rubric, there are 5 possible points. Let's look at 0 points. Students did not complete the work. The student either did not do the work or the student plagiarized the work. So if you plagiarize the work, it's an automatic 0. No questions asked, automatic 0. Okay? Minimal effort, a student provided minimal effort to the assignment. The student did not stay on task and the following criterion was not met. 50 minimum word count, grammar and spelling expectations, sentence structure, clear and concise language. So we know that a 50 minimum word count is required. So if you meet 2 out of those 4 criterion, you can at least get 3 points. However, the best thing to do is to just spend the extra 5 minutes to do a spelling check, a grammar check, and make sure you have 50 words, and you will get your 5 points. However, if you do not have your spelling and grammar checked, and if it's not 100% correct, you get 4 points. Even if you have 50 words, even if you stayed on task, and even if everything else is okay, if you have 3 or more spelling mistakes, let's call it what it is, spelling mistakes. If you have 3 or more spelling mistakes, I'm giving you 4 out of 5 instead of 5 out of 5, okay? But you can do it. There's literally a tool that helps you. Check this out. I'm gonna type this. Oh, look, it tells me it's wrong. That's all you have to do is correct your spelling, and you'll be fine. So do not try and copy anything off the internet. It's an automatic 0. I'm not telling you again. It's the last time I'm telling you. Okay, and if you notice, there's one more thing under assignments. It's called Educated Chapters 1 and 2. I need you to read these 2 chapters for tomorrow, okay? And if you look at it, it's 25 pages. That sounds like a lot, but it's really fast to read. These pages are really short. Like, look, like 3 paragraphs per page. And just read chapters 2 and 3, because tomorrow we'll be discussing chapters 2 and 3. I'm sorry, not 2 and 3, 1 and 2. Read chapters 1 and 2. Tomorrow we'll be discussing chapters 1 and 2. So if you're not prepared to discuss chapters 1 and 2, you're not going to be ready to do your work. Even if that means getting up in the morning and reading before class, whatever it takes, make sure you read chapters 1 and 2. And then if you look at Tuesday's work, first thing that we do is activity 1, education chapters 1 and 2. So we're going to be looking at chapters 1 and 2 again. You can't actually see the assignment because it's locked until tomorrow, but make sure you read both things, okay? And that's it for today. That's basically all you have to do. So make sure you do your read works and answer activity 1 and 2. And then finally, make sure you read chapters 1 and 2 for tomorrow. Won't take you long to do any of this. In total, probably 45 minutes. You know, standard length of a class period. Crazy, right? Because you should still be doing work even when you're not at school. So with that being said, I hope you all have a great day. And if you need anything at all, just send me a message.